What's up, Timothy's here. Now, here is my throwback segment where I talk about the films that turns 10, 20, 30, and 40 this week. Alright, the films celebrating their 10th anniversary. Boy, this is crazy to believe. We got the very first Minions movie. Now, of course, Minions was a spin-off to the Despicable Me franchise. Now, also, we already had Minions Rise of Gru. We got another Minions coming out next year. I think it's supposed to be titled Mega Minions or whatever, but I just quite enjoy that first Minions. I mean, it's not as good as, let's say, the Despicable Me films, but it definitely has some fun charm to it. It's where like the minions are in search of like a an evil master, and after accidentally kill all the those in history here, and yeah, I really had fun time with that one. Of course, you had like Sandra Bullock, John Hamm, Michael Keaton. Obviously, you will end up getting like a young Gru towards the end. It's definitely definitely has a fun charm to it. I remember enjoying this one at the time. Not a bad film there. All right. Now, we got two films turning 10 that's not so good. We got Selfless, which is, of course, this is the movie that stars Ryan Reynolds. You also had, like, Ben Kingsley, Derek Luke. And it tells the story of a business tycoon and billionaire diagnosed with terminal illness who manages to save his own life by transferring his consciousness into, like, a new, younger body. And it's not so good. You got like Matthew Good was in this. It was so boring. I mean, it's directed by Tarsim Singh, who did that movie The Cell with Jennifer Lopez. He did Mirror Mirror, the Snow White one with Lily Collins. But this one, definitely one of Ron Reynolds' like worst films in my opinion. Probably even worse than Green Lantern, to be honest. Yeah, I kid you not. I mean, Green Lantern is not so good, but he's actually done worse movies than those. But Selfless definitely is one of them. Alright. Also turning 10 is The Gallows. Now, The Gallows actually starred Kathy Lee Gifford's daughter, believe it or not. So, there's that. And, of course, the film centers on, like, a 20-year-old after, like, a horrific accident during a small-town school play where students at the school resurrect a failed show in a misguided attempt to honor their anniversary of the tragedy. And, yeah, this was pretty much like, let's say, the Hangman, a horror version of Hangman. That's what you get with this. It was so boring. Nothing about it was all that interesting. I was not a fan of this one at all. Then they somehow did a sequel, which was actually even worse. But now, a film turning 10, probably better than any of the other three. I'll probably talk about this one because the director of it just won an Oscar recent and directed one of the best films last year and the year before, and that is Tangerine. Now, Tangerine is directed by Sean Baker, who will go on to direct like The Florida Project, Red Rocket, and he recently just won an Oscar for Nora. Now, this was actually the movie that Sean Baker actually shot on an iPhone, and the story follows like a transgender sex worker, which okay, cool there. I mean, was it with Sean Baker and sex workers? Good on him, I guess. Who of course discovers like her boyfriend and him has been like cheating on her here. And Tangerine is excellent. I mean, it's not as good as let's say Florida Project, Honora, or Red Rocket, but it's a really decent one worth giving a go. The two leads here, Katana Kiki Rodriguez and Maya Taylor, are both excellent. This was actually their first feature film, believe it or not, and they crush out of the park here. I mean, that's something about Sean Baker. Like, a lot of his movies always find, like, he's always great when it comes to having, like, giving stars their breakout roles. Whether it's, like, the little girl from Florida Project, Brooklyn Prince, or whether it's Susanna Sun in Red Rocket, or most recent, Mikey Madison in Nora. Like, a lot of his movies really gives stars like really good breakout performances, and these two are excellent here. So if you guys never really seen a Tangerine, definitely give it a go. Alright, now films turning 20 this week. This is also unfortunate because one of the stars recently did pass away, just recent. That is, of course, Fantastic Four. Sadly, again, this week, Julian McMahon, who of course played Doctor Doom, tragically did pass away. And he was a, say what you want about the Fantastic Four movie in general, he was great in Fantastic Four, like as Doctor Doom. And you know what? I know like the 2015 one wasn't so good. Rise of the Silver Surfer was great. I will I will die on the hill and say this Fantastic Four movie is the best one. Not that the best Fantastic Four movie we've ever had is Incredibles, but Fantastic Four actually related. I mean, of course, you got like Jessica Alba, Chris Evans, is it Ian? Yeah, Ian Griffith, Micah Chiklis. Say what you want about the movie in general, the castings were perfect. You know, of course, directed by Tim Story, who will go on to give us like the ride along movies. I really quite enjoyed that first Fantastic Four. It definitely has a fun charm to it. Yeah, really a little cheesy at times, yeah, but I still always quite enjoy it, and that's just me, of course. And obviously, funny how we have like the 2015 Fantastic Four, and now of course we got the new one coming out. So it's like they always like try and make a new Fantastic Four every 10 years. But hopefully, after this next Fantastic Four, we don't have to wait until like 2035 for the next one. But listen, all right. Also turning 20 is the terrible horror movie Dark Water. Oh boy, this was directed by Walter Sells, who of course gave us like On the Road, The Motorcycle Diaries. It's a remake of the 2002 Japanese horror film of the same name, where Jennifer Connelly, who plays Dahlia, wants to move away from her ex-husband Kyle and take her daughter Cece with her. And of course, she discovers like dark water leaking to like a ceiling of her apartment. And her patrons, the supervisor, played by Pete, the late Pete, passed away. And the building's owner, played by John C. Reilly, should fix it. And of course, there's crazy nightmares, and Delilah has like driven to confront the problem herself. It is so boring. One of the worst horror remakes, in my opinion. Probably up there with the likes of The Wicker Man. It's really The Wicker Man bad. It's just not that scary. Jennifer Connelly is like, she's okay, but she's kind of phoning in here. It's just not a good one. Alright. Films turning dirty this week. We, of course, got 9 Months. Who remembers 9 Months? Of course, with Julianne Moore, Hugh Grant, Robin Williams, Joan Cusack, Jeff Goldblum, a very young Alexa Vega. You also had Zelda Williams, who's of course the daughter of Robin Williams. She was like a child when she did this film. This, of course, were like a successful child psychologist, and at one time Playboy Samuel Faulkner, played by Hugh Grant. Here's that his girlfriend, played by Julianne Moore, is pregnant, and he, of course, panics and he cripples with fear of commitment sets in, and so of course she decides to like leave him and realizing, and so of course he wants to like struggle to come to terms with the gravity of fatherhood, and the cast actually is pretty solid. It's also directed by Chris Columbus, who obviously gave us the first two Harry Potter movies, Home Alone. Obviously, he also did Mrs. Doubtfire. Speaking of Robin Williams, I mean, Nine Months is definitely a really charming Hugh Lowe film. The chemistry between like Hugh Grant and Julianne Moore is really good. Really decent film, worth giving a go. All right, what's turning dirty is The Indian and the Cupboard. Directed by Master Yoda and Miss Piggy himself, Frank Oz. I mean, of course, written by Melissa Maffin, based on a children's book of the same name. Who remembers The Indian and the Cupboard? Of course, the story revolves around like this kid who pretty much receives like a cupboard as a gift on his 9th birthday, and he later discovers that putting the toy figures in like the cupboard after locking and unlocking it brings the toys to life. This is pretty much, I guess, say like the lot, pretty much in. Obviously, this came out before Toy Story, like a few months beforehand. But this definitely, had a little bit of like a Toy Story, Small Soldiers feel to it. In the Cup one is definitely a lot of fun here. Of course, you had like, you know, Richard Jenkins was in this, Steve Coogan, David Keefe. I mean, it's definitely a really fun like fantasy film from the 90s. I mean, 95 definitely had a thing about toys coming to life. First we had this, then obviously much later we will get a little movie called Toy Story in there. So, and obviously a few years after there will be Small Soldiers. Who remember Small Soldiers, right? Obviously, who doesn't love seeing movies with toys coming to life? So, yeah, all right. Now, also turning, oh boy, also turning dirty. Under Siege 2 Dark Territory. The first Under Siege is awesome. Starring Steven Seagal, Tommy Lee Jones, Gary Busey. That original Under Siege is one of the best Steven Seagal movies of all time, in my opinion. Unfortunately, they did a sequel. I think it's actually the only sequel Steven Seagal ever done, by the way. I mean, I don't think he's ever done a Fire Down Below sequel. Yeah, I think it's actually the only time he ever done a sequel. And of course, this also had like a very young Catherine Heiga. I think it was like her first feature, if I'm not mistaken. Um, yeah, of course, this stars Steven Seagal once again as ex-Navy SEAL Casey Ryback, who is set on a boarding train traveling under the Rocky Mountains from Denver to LA. And of course, it refers to like the railroading term here. And yeah, of course, yeah, the first Under Siege is great, but the sequel is awful. I mean, I'm actually one of the rare folks who is a fan of Steven Seagal. I mean, let's be real. He is not a good actor at all. But I used to always get kick out Steven Seagal action movies. Like, whenever I see a Steven Seagal movie, I don't expect good acting from him. I just expect him to, like, you know, to do his thing, beat up, bad guys. Like, who doesn't love seeing Steven Seagal just whoop up behind? Right? I mean, he actually had some really good films in his last, maybe not towards 2010s. I mean, only good film he had in the 2010s is probably Machete, but that's really it. But I mean, the guy has always been in some cool stuff I've enjoyed. Under Siege 2 is definitely not one of them. And yeah, it's just not so good. Not definitely is like, let's say, his Speed 2 in my opinion. It's just a really bad one, and yeah. Oh yeah, you also had like Mark Chestnut in this. I forgot he was in that too. Alright, film turning 40 this week. We got Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. Of course, Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome is like, the dirty installment of the Mad Max franchise. Once again, of course, this one had like Tina Turner. I think this was actually the last Mad Max movie we ended up having until Fury Road came out. So it's been like 10 between years in between Mad Max. But of course, this follows like a lone rover warrior who exiled into the desert here. And this was actually Mel Gibson's last performance as Mad Max here. And Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome is probably one of the top tier favorites. It is a lot of fun. Like seeing Tina Turner in this, great performance right there. Of course, George Miller obviously will go on to return to the Mad Max franchise with Fury Road and obviously Furiosa. Furiosa did not do so well, but it is what it is there. But hey, Thunderdome is still a really fun one. Alright, also turning 40 is Silverado. Directed by former Empire Strikes Back writer-director Lawrence Kasdan. Starring the likes of Kevin Kline, Scott Glenn, Danny Glover, Jeff Goldblum, where a misfit bunch of friends come together, to the rights and justice which exists in a small town here. And Silverado is, of course, a Western film, and one of like underappreciated Westerns in my opinion. It's definitely a lot of fun. Jeff Goldblum, Brian Dennehy, great cast list. Definitely give that one a go if you guys haven't seen that. Alright, also turning 40 is Explorers. Now, this was directed by Joe Dante, who would go on to direct. Of course, he also did like Gremlins here. And Explorers, of course, obviously was trying to capitalize on the success of something like Goonies and all. You had like a young Ethan Hawke, a young River Phoenix, and of course, it was actually like both. This was actually Ethan Hawke and River Phoenix's acting debuts, and they were actually pretty solid here. Obviously, Ethan Hawke will go on to do some bigger stuff. Now, of course, River Phoenix, tragically, he did pass away in the '90s. But throughout the '80s, he's did some really cool projects too. Obviously, Stand by Me and many others. I mean, River Phoenix gone way too soon. Now, this is of course about these young teen kids who build like a spacecraft to explore their outer space here. And again, you can definitely tell that if they were trying to capitalize on those '80s adventure stuff, whether you talk about like E.T., the Goonies and stuff, it didn't really do as well as those. It's actually not a bad film though. I mean, Explorers it's nowhere near as classic as let's say the Goonies or E.T. or even Back to the Future is, but it definitely has some fun charm to it. Again, was the movie that really put Ethan Hawke on the map, like because this was actually his like first feature he's ever done, and obviously the first that River's done. But it's a worth a watch. Check out if you guys have seen it. But that's pretty much it there. Let me let you guys. Which of these films stand out to you the most? To me, the 10-year one is actually going to go to Tangerine. The 20-year one is going to Fantastic Four. 30-year one is The Indian and the Cupboard. And the 40-year one is Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. Anyway, drop comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell for notification. This is Timmy.